met with, I think, the third prospect that walked in. And from getting to know them for the first time, never having met them before, I essentially then closed them out on a master franchise deal for the UK same weekend, basically. I've discovered that a phenomena that I at least call a super connector burnout exists, where super connectors are consistently connecting with people, and the connection to receiving ratio is exponentially low, right? I think comfort creates mediocrity. So one needs to risk in their life, I'd say, to be able to achieve great things. Like whatever your goal is, change it to something that's 10 times bigger, because you probably should never achieve the ultimate goal that you want. And if you do, then great. You don't want to underdream.
18 years old, new country, no contacts, first weekend, £20,000 deal closed. Today, a network of 6.5 million people. My guest, Mario Brondani, doesn't just know people, he's building a machine around it. Stay with us. So we're going to go straight into it. You arrived in Spain at 18 years old, no real network, new country, and you closed £20,000 deal in your first weekend. How did you do it?
So I just want to give a bit of context. It's not that I just arrived. I was there for a little bit of time before this happened, essentially. So just to kind of fill you in, I was there probably about a year learning Spanish, because I'm not Spanish at all. I just moved there, right? So learned the language. Um, yeah, started this way, essentially. I then realized that I needed to make some money for an e-commerce platform, because e-commerce was like booming at that time, specifically drop shipping, right? I had no idea how to raise this money, and at 18, like I had no job, had nothing, had to figure out, how am I going to get a bit of startup money, right? So I decided to cold call every franchise in my area there in Alicante, and I ended up working with one that was in the direct marketing area, right? So essentially, just physical marketing products that were sold within various restaurants, specifically within the hospitality industry. Convinced them to get me on as their director of sales. Went to Scotland to do my first ever expo on Friday. Met with, I think, the third prospect that walked in, and from getting to know them for the first time, never having met them before, I essentially then closed them out on a master franchise deal for the UK same weekend. Basically, that's it.
Well, that is impressive. And so it feels to me that you have a power of persuasion, a power of communication that people trust. And we'll get into this when we talk about your network and things like that. What do you think, what sort of personality traits do you hold? Do you feel that gives you that confidence and lets people trust you and trust that you can deliver?
I believe it's authenticity completely. I think it's important to genuinely care about the person that you're talking to, not wanting to pull the wool over the eyes or just sell them something for the sake of selling them, right? I think that authentic connection and interest in getting to know them, their business, and how you can help them genuinely, it goes the distance, right? That's one of the parts, I would say.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think it's we're in a world of AI and lots of ways of content and sort of short form content where people sort of up their game. They sort of start raising themselves. But when you're looking for deals, when you're talking to people about business and talking about selling to them, that authenticity and people believe that you can deliver what you're selling, I think is a critical key moment, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Um, so what was going through your head moving from South Africa to Spain at 18?
I was thrilled, man. I was, tired of a lot of the ways South Africa was run. I recall it now, and it makes me laugh specifically because I learned firsthand the saying that goes, "You don't know what you've got until it's gone." Right? Like I spent years hating living in South Africa, growing up there, and so at that moment in time, I was just super excited to get out, super excited to go to the first world. Right? More on that later. But yeah, I was just, really excited to go to a more connected place, because South Africa is particularly secluded from the rest of the world, being where it's at geographically. So that was my immediate thought.
And was it everything you'd hoped for?
Yeah, no, not at all. So, coming back to the saying, right? You don't know what you got until it's gone. I realized how much I took for granted where I came from and where I grew up, right? And I also realized that, I mean, the more I've lived in Europe, 5 countries later, you know the thought became more ingrained as I've gone along, right? But every country has its pros and its cons. So I've learned really well what the pros and cons of South Africa was, and what I've missed out on moving to Spain, and also what the pros and cons were there. So it was not at all what I had expected, but it was everything to help me grow professionally. Um, yeah, spent 5.5 years in Spain. It was an adventure in itself.
So, so
Met a
I'm
lot of
intrigued.
people.
What do you miss about South Africa now?
I think above all, the culture of the people. The South African culture is, I think, unlike any other country on the face of the earth. Really, I think it's so unique, and it's so diverse and so inclusive and just wonderful. That's definitely one of the things that I miss, hands down.
Any plans to go back, or do you visit a bit?
I also spent 8 years without visiting, honestly. Yeah, just didn't go back for 8 years. Missed it, went back. It changed significantly. This was Christmas of 2024, right? Having left in 2016. So solid 8 years later, I definitely want to make it a habit to visit more often,
Yeah.
because I still have a bit of family there, and yeah, plans to return. I don't think so. I don't think so. I think in many ways Europe has a lot of potential, but I don't want to close that door either. It just depends on the opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. You've got a quote that I absolutely love, which is, think about how your business runs in 10 years and start doing it now. Where do you think that mindset comes from?
I would say, at least from the way that I've always tried to find solutions within problems that specific industries have and are going through, and then will go through. Right? It's from a book that I've read that I don't recall, because this was, maybe about seven years ago. Um, that the quote specifically was, look at how the world can change and then try and pre-anticipate that. Actually, in fact, I remember, it's a Blue Ocean Strategy, right? Great book, great book. So having thought about this specifically, I always try to find gaps within specific models, and yeah, kind of go towards that basis.
And it's a great idea. It's a fantastic idea when you think about when business owners sit down and they reflect. And one of the things that I think small business owners struggle with is actually that time to reflect and sort of think about what you've achieved and what has happened over the last 6 months or 12 months, and reflecting on where you want your business to be. I think is something that we don't talk about that much as business owners. You're always looking at the next hurdle, the next problem, the next solution that you're looking to get. Um, a 10-year plan, I think, is incredibly valuable of where you think your business might be. And just one thing that made me think was, if people don't think they're going to be in their business in 10 years time because they're going to sell it, or they're going to leave, or they're going to go to something else, or they have an ambition for something else, maybe that's a good direction for them to actually leave that business and actually step away and do something different.
Yeah, potentially.
What do you think about that? Like, where do you see yourself now in 10 years?
Each year the question changes, I guess. But I think, given the circumstances of where we're at right now, it's not a specific fixed place, but more of an idea. You know, I think in 10 years, I expect to be even more connected than where I am now. Because I think with a world that is consistently developing more and more through AI, what will always hold true is our ability to connect and hold relationships with other individuals, right? So this is at least what I try to strive and do. Just more on a hypothesis end of it all. On specifically what it's going to look like, I don't think anybody knows, right? But you can strive
Yeah.
to something.
You know, something we hear again and again on business growth talks is that founders, leaders, and CEOs don't do it alone. They surround themselves with people who see what they can't. But if you're a founder running a business between 1 million and 20 million, here's the truth. Your accountant sees the numbers, your mentor shares their stories, and nobody sees the whole picture. That's the gap. CEO Friend closes it. AI-powered advisors across finance, marketing, strategy, and growth, personalized to your business, built on your data. They're where you need them. The quality of thinking that a proper board gives you without the cost. I've been using it myself, and I used a competitor analysis for my podcast guesting business. It gave me details of all of my competitors, and it gave me key findings of the industry, a SWOT analysis, and what I need to do section. It was so clear on strategy, and I loved the comments of what I needed to do next. It has really got me thinking about my business podcast introduction. We have a special offer just to business growth listeners. If you're serious about building business and having great minds supporting you in finance, marketing, strategy, and growth, then go to ceofriend.ai/offer and get a month for free with using my own code BGT10. Links below in the show notes. So where do you see AI in your life? Are you using it a lot?
Yeah, absolutely. Every day, almost anything. I don't think I search through Google anymore. I just use
No.
AI 100%. I find that the answers are a lot more precise rather than having to filter through multiple resources,
Full of
articles,
resources
etc.
and
Right?
websites and
I
things,
think
yeah.
it also can build a very precise answer based on a certain history that I give it for what my specific question will entail to, right? So yeah, I've stopped using Google completely. I just use AI left and right for absolutely everything.
Yeah, I know it's weird, isn't it? And this has only been happening for a few years now. It's scary how fast it's coming in, and I don't think it is scary. I think we obviously the Terminator sort of worry of robots and everything and taking over the world is a worry. But where we are currently, it's moving at such a pace that I think you've got to you've got to ally with it, you've got to connect with it, you've got to use it to really be able to take that next step that people next step of your business. And now you can move so much faster with less employees, with less people to do that, that it's got to be the future, hasn't it?
Yeah, I think there's pros and cons of it all, right? Like this whole replacing jobs idea. I think
Yeah.
people try and go through that route and then realize that the credits are more expensive than the employees themselves.
Well,
So they've
do
got
you know what
rid
I
of
think,
a bunch of
Mario?
people,
I
right?
think
And it's
I think what we're going to do is where you would go and you'd hire someone and you'd manage them and you'd work with them to deliver a project or a service. All we're going to be doing is spending more time building AI agents to be able to do that work, or talking to ChatGPT or a Claude about how we're going to deliver that. I think we're just going to spend, I don't think the human's going to be devoid, is not going to be needed. They're just going to be talking to AI, and that's going to be our interaction. And that's what the business model is going to be. Do you agree?
Yeah, I think there's truth in that. I think, especially for smaller business owners, it's going to become something where the prioritization of specific tasks, where now they're giving it to freelancers and such, will then just probably be given to an AI agent. And they'll probably either pay the same or more to the AI for this to be done if they're not really savvy with it. Um, it just depends. But I think,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely has future, definitely has potential. Um, I think the costs on a yearly basis would probably be of some saving if you know what you're doing. Um, but yeah, it requires a lot of learning, which I'm sure a lot of people are willing to go through. So
Yeah. Right. Moving on. Everyone's talking about networking, but you seem to be operating on a completely different level. So, what does being a super connector mean to you?
I don't consider myself a super connector. I think a real super connector doesn't consider themselves a super connector either. And I'm not saying that because I'm a super connector. I'm just saying, people that I've met that are extremely well connected in the world, they're pretty humble with the idea, and they just base their relationships on a one-to-one basis. And they've done that many times that eventually everybody knows them. But they're always on that one-to-one, giving you personalized focus when I'm talking to you, right? So, what it means to me entirely would be building, again, authenticity, right? The authenticity never leaves, it's always there. The more authentic you are with the person that you're trying to connect with, whether it's either for some business transaction or even just to get to know them as a person, as a human being, right? That's the thing that matters the most. And I think the super connectors that are truly super in what they've done have mastered the authenticity game, right?
So, what does you've mentioned that word a few times, authenticity. What does it actually mean to you to be authentic?
Yeah, as I mentioned before, I believe it's coming with, I'd say, probably the idea of putting the other person first, right? Which, at least for the 150 super connectors that I've put together at this point, they all do something different, right? But they have that innate ability to want to help the other person, right? And not on the back end want something in return. There's no hidden initiative or idea. Um, I believe it's just them purely wanting to help the other person, right? So the authenticity, I would say specifically, would focus on the person helping without expecting anything in return.
Yeah, and so you're looking to it's estimated that you potentially have a reach of like 6 million people. This is what when I was doing the research on you. So of these 140, 150 super connectors, what would actually qualify someone to be able to join this very, very, very exciting group?
Yeah, I would. Okay, firstly, I have a conversation with absolutely everybody. So if I don't speak to them and vet them, essentially, I don't allow them to join, right? I think their innate ability to help or want to help others is the core of the network itself, right? I have people that have an elite group of maybe 200 people, and that makes them a pure super connector just for the way of the connections that they have, right? I have some super connectors that have a personalized community of about 600,000 people, right? It spans from very small to very, very large. But the thing that I think is definitely of great importance is that ability to want to help others. That's one of the key core things that I look at. And then above beyond that, it just depends on the type of conversation I'm having or the type of person that I'm speaking to, basically. I've characterized super connectors to fit into five specific types, right? Depending on what type they would fit into. And it's not just a one by one, they might fall into two or three of the categories simultaneously. The conversation goes differently. But in the as a core idea, right? That's what I look for.
So you're building this platform specifically for these guys to be able to monetize their deal flow. What's the gap that you're filling that other people haven't before?
So I think, at least what I found, right, having at this point 150 conversations just with these well-connected individuals, right? I've discovered that a phenomena that I at least call a super connector burnout exists, where super connectors are consistently connecting with people, and the connection to receiving ratio is exponentially low, right? They're consistently helping people, but they just don't ask for anything in return, or they do and it just doesn't go to any avail, right? So out of the 150, I found that I think the number at this point, it's either 14 or 16. I need to check my notes, but let's say 14 people, right, have gone through this form of super connected burnout because either they have no time for themselves because they're just, 12, 16 hours a day packed with calls, right? Or they're making money in their core business, but all the referrals they're doing isn't bringing them any form of revenue, right? Now, it might to some contradict the original idea of genuinely wanting to help the other person, right? But I believe that you can genuinely help them and you can also make money during that process. Um, if money's exchanged between people, then I at least go under the ethos of everyone should get paid if they put a deal together, right? Why leave out someone if everyone had a particular role in getting a deal done? So this is the gap that I found after at least having 14 of the burnouts actually happened and a bunch more experienced some form of that, right? So I found that either super connectors are always looking to connect people, but themselves need more connecting to, right? Or they know each other, some of them. There's a lot of overlap between them, but they don't know what's going on within the day-to-day or even month-to-month lives between them, right? So what I sought to do is find that bridge that allows me to not only connect them in real time on a consistent basis, but also provide them authentic connection, deal flow, referrals, and essentially the facilitation of relationships between them all.
So what does the platform look like? What are you how is it being packaged together to connect those people together?
Yeah, so I'm actually just about to launch the first wave um, of the package itself. I don't call it a platform specifically. It's based on an outward and an inward system, right? So on the inside of it, the back end, which is what I see. Essentially, I've built it upon a 35 commandment system that encompasses the conversations that I've had with all 150 of them, right? That has allowed me to understand what is it that a true super connector is really looking for and how I can truly add value to their business regardless of what it is, right? So this 35 commandment system packed in with an AI that monetizes and manages the system throughout for me to be able to consistently in real time understand what information they're giving me, who I can best connect them to, and then have a memory bank on top of all of that that remembers if 3 months ago they requested me for something specifically, that's probably still in effect, right? And maybe 3 months later, I found the solution for what they were trying to solve. I can make that connection for them. That's the back end, right? The front end, it's particularly simple. I've made it as frictionless as possible for the super connectors. In simplicity, it is broken down into two forms, right? One 15-minute onboarding form that within 15 minutes, they're detailing me as much of their life as humanly possible, their connections, their network, and even their reach, right? They're giving me the entire 360 of what they're doing, who they are, and who they have a reach to. And I'm plugging that as, let's say, the main card that is them, right? And then the system works on a rotating odd and even system, right? So basically, on a weekly basis, odd weeks and even weeks of the month. On the odd weeks, they're getting another form, 60 seconds, where they're just breaking down what they're working on, what they need help with, and what people have they connected with that need help within the grapevine that's their network, right? Interesting deals, anything fascinating that they also want to bring to the super connecting community. And then on even weeks, so weeks 2 and 4, they're receiving personalized connections, recommendations, referrals, deals, and facilitated relationships directly from me to their email, right? And they're responding with either yes or no, and then they're giving me the reason why. That's essentially the system itself. It's particularly straightforward. I wanted to have as little investment time as possible because most of the super connectors are inherently very occupied in their day-to-day roles, right? So I don't want to be wasting any time, and I want to be delivering as much results as effectively as possible directly to them on a weekly, bi-weekly basis.
So we're looking to build a workflow. You built a workflow for deals for the super connectors for their own business and the people that they're meeting for other people within this network. And so you're adding things, you're adding people, are you adding people into the workflow, or and sort of like what they do and what their expertise is, and what AI is then saying someone that I know would be an interesting connection for you, Mario, and therefore would you like, is there a point where I go, yes, I would like to speak to Mario, or like, is that how it works?
Yeah, absolutely. So you're receiving an email directly to your inbox every even week over the month with essentially what you asked me for in the previous week. I'm giving you directly those recommendations, right? And it's as simple as clicking a button, yes or no. And if you click no, then a follow-up email asks you, okay, I understand. Please tell me why this wasn't good for you. And then it's completely building upon your profile on what you're looking for and what is and isn't a good fit. So after a period of usage in time, it's learned well enough that you're looking for specific things and makes the correct referrals basically to you. And upon that, I'm essentially checking every recommendation before I send it out, right? So I'm personally vetting every connection based on also the history that I've had with the super connector, because I try and build a relationship with all of them, right? And that's what I've been doing for the last bunch of months since September 2025. I've been inherently having countless one-to-ones with them all, doing personalized referrals directly for them without the system, because I've been connecting for 6 years, right? So I still have my own network, my own base. I make personalized referrals to them as well, and I've built a couple of referral partnerships, etc. This is just to remove the human error, right? To get me out of it and have it more consistent. And yeah, that's it.
Brilliant. How long has it taken you to build the system?
I think about 2.5, 3 months.
That's pretty quick.
Yeah, again, with AI, it's incredibly quick. Just did it myself based on my commandment system and then just trial and error until I've got something that is worth launching, essentially. And we're just about there.
And what about the 35 commands that you mentioned earlier on? What do they, what's the basis of them?
Yeah, so the commandments that I've put together are essentially an ethos that I found after having 150 conversations with super connectors that is essentially the basis of what I want the system to operate under, right? It's not just AI taking a transcript and then checking, oh, okay, this person says this, how can I combine it with that? It's essentially an entire workflow that I've built upon that will expand further, right? That allows me to not only do one-on-one referrals, but it also allows me to do syndicates, bunch of stuff, bunch of stuff. We could go for hours talking about each of the points, but this is what makes it the secret sauce, right? It allows
Sure.
me to
Sure.
have something that's proprietarily mine that I've put together that isn't just AI doing connections, right? It's a complete system that takes that I've scrutinized like to the very core,
Sure.
that has eventually then spit out 35 specific core ideas that a super connector holds dear, valuable, and true to them and their business. And this allows me to make the perfect connections that I've been doing even before I've developed this. This is something that I've just been operating subconsciously over the last couple of years. I think maybe about four at this point, without even knowing it, right? I eventually sat down and put pen to paper, and then just came up with all of it. Basically, took that, built and coded a system with Python, took it out of my mind and put it into a computer, basically.
Amazing. And what about deals? So obviously deals can come in many multiple shapes. They can come as a small business owner. This person would be a good fit to potentially buy from you. Also, you got larger deals, like could be real estate, could be like property stuff. It could be sort of like venture capital and things like that. What are your primary target markets when it comes to that? Is it mainly the small business owner getting a new client, which could be worth 5, 10, 20, $50,000 or more? Or is it more aimed for the $1 million, $10 million, $100 million deals?
Yeah, it's a great question, Mark. Essentially, it's a bit of a mix of everything. Because I have a vast array of super connectors, even some that are small business owners but are connected to really wonderful and fantastic people, people that you would have never expected a specific one individual to know, right? It's kind of a mix out of everything, because then the matrix kind of breaks down into one person connected to 149 different people can then expand to, create a multi matrix that, is able to overlap a few million times. So essentially what I do with all of this is I don't really judge the size of the deal. It's more how I can help the super connector specifically, right? So it maps into everything. There's not really a specific restriction that I've placed it down to. I've just made sure that the super connectors fall into one or multiple of the five categories that I've set to be able to then, let's say, allocate them the specific side of the system and then have a good abundance of each type of super connector within one system. So at least they're all able to overlap and connect successfully and correctly. And let's say, with with the right amount of flow for each of them, right? Because my goal is to be able to provide a consistent generation of connections for each of them, thus allowing me to strengthen the relationship with each of them on a consistent basis.
Yeah. What makes a great connection? What makes a great introduction?
I think it always comes back to the authenticity, what someone genuinely needs, and finding the person that can help them solve that need, right? Whether it be a connection, whether it be a client, whatever that specific person is looking for, authentically finding the right connection because you heard them correctly the first time and you've actually, with purpose, found that person that they're looking for and then connecting them together.
And how would someone apply or get into this group of super connectors?
Just reach out to me. Let's have a conversation.
And something I understood was that when we spoke previously, you mentioned that you have a day job and then you're doing this sort of after hours, which when I heard you like doing 7, 8 hours of your job and then spending another 6 hours in the evening, like it's a relentless task that you're doing, and obviously you have passion for it and you love what you're doing. No discredit to that, but how are you able to juggle both the job and this business as well?
Yeah, I think the plan is just time management. Really, really what it comes down to, time management. I think a lot of us as individuals waste a lot of time doing unnecessary things, right? So at least I just took a look at what I'm wasting the most time on and I just got rid of it. And then you realize that you have an abundance of time that you can actually use somewhere else, right? So that key realization for me was social media, right? TikTok, Instagram, the good stuff. Got rid of it, realized that I had those notifications of screen usage time that I
Yeah.
was spending maybe 3, 4, 5 hours a day. We're talking about like a bunch of years ago, right? The 3, 4, 5 hours a day invested on these platforms. So 3, 4, 5 hours a day of just doom scrolling can then be turned into something else, and that's essentially what I did a number of years ago. You know.
And is the ambition to go full time on this?
Yeah, I'd say hopefully that's the plan. I've just had a bunch of conversations, realized that there was a gap, spent a couple of months building out this platform, and yeah, very soon to take it live. That's the plan. That's the goal.
How many people do you meet a week?
It depends on the week, but when I started this out and I hadn't realized the super connector ambition, it was 40 one-to-ones a week. I then soon dialed it down to maybe about 15, because having done it since September until February of 40 people a week, it takes out a lot of time. Yeah.
And the thing about networking is, like, I've been networking for 6 years or so. It's often a long game, isn't it? And someone that you get introduced to, it might not come to fruition straight away, but just staying in contact with them, knowing that they're either well connected or that you have a connection with them of authenticity, which you've mentioned a number of times. How do you, like, what for you is networking? Are you making this transactional? Are you making networking into transactional, or are you trying to foster relationships using I use the word platform, a system to do that? Are you actually taking some of the interactions away, or do you think that you're adding huge amounts of value that people might not need to be networking in the same way that they've done previously?
Yeah, I think having gone through what a lot of people go through, especially on the networking groups and such, where you go to calls and you realize that everybody's pitching and no one's wanting to build a relationship authentically. I did that for most of July and August of 2025, right? And having known this already previously, but I wanted to experience it firsthand again after COVID. I realized that essentially it's still the same, right? Everybody is there, everybody's on a transactional basis, everybody's looking for clients for their business. I think I think a grand majority of people are just there, for this specific purpose. Few go for the authentic connections, but it's those few that have built something big, right? So I quickly realized that idea. I also realized that that specifically takes a lot of time, as what you just said, right? So at least what I'm trying to do is allow people, specifically super connectors, to save time. That's the overall goal and purpose of this. Not specifically to make it more transactional, but to give them higher quality connections without them having to sit maybe 5, 6, 7 hours of one-to-ones with one person, right? Maybe cutting that down from maybe 5 to 2 hours, but you've already known that person fits into your avatar, right? Bringing that person directly, doing that maybe 20 times, helping them save 50 hours total. That's a good amount of time. That's at least what I'm trying to do, right? And
Yeah.
get them some money as well, of course, because everybody wants to make money within their business, right? Taking a piece of that as well, just for that authentic help. I think everybody deserves to get paid as well. So
Yeah,
that's at least what I'm trying
absolutely.
to do.
So if there's someone listening to this that starting from scratch, like a small network or maybe an early stage business, what's the one thing that they should do if they want to build a impactful, value-adding network, what's the one thing that they should be doing today?
Yeah, I think first they need to realize what not to do, right? So do what everybody else is doing, understand why it's a problem, and then build up from that, right? When you realize that authenticity is really the key in networking, by having done a bunch of networking group calls and seeing that everybody is really out there just to, transactionally network rather than authentically build relationships, you then understand the the key that very few people have to unlock the door of abundance, to you really building out that networking base. Then from that, another thing that most groups don't tell you is to find referral partners, right? Abundantly
Yeah.
give those referral partners as much business as you can through your networking. You'll find that you find 3 to 5 people that are in your industry that are not in direct competition that you can add value to, right? If you're helping those people and they're also referring clients back to you, that's worth its weight more than
Yeah,
gold,
referral
honestly.
partners is, as you say, it's like a secret sauce that no one tells you. And then
Mhm.
suddenly, once you realize it, it took me a number of years of networking to realize that referral partners is where you're going to get most of your business from. We're constantly, now, don't get me wrong, going out and meeting people at networking groups is a great way of being able to get your name out there and make those connections. But that's what they don't tell you at networking groups about referral partners. Why do you think
Yeah.
that is?
I think it's because they themselves don't even know. it's it is a secret sauce, right? As you said. Yeah, I think it's more on the foundation. These groups, I mean, it's more on the foundation of the law of averages, right? The more people you get into the group, the more lucky you are to close a deal, right? But doing the shotgun effect and shooting 50 and hoping one lands is not as great as building 3 to 5 solid relationships and having it on a more consistent basis
Yeah.
of lead flow, let's say, right? But specifically because you genuinely want to help them, the authenticity never kind of falls away. You want to consistently help the person that's your referral partner by getting them business through the networking that you're doing. And then naturally, you'll hopefully find the people that are also willing to do the same in return, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, What would you say your risk appetite is? Obviously, you're taking a risk by starting this venture. What would you say your risk appetite is now, and has it changed over the years?
Yeah, I think it's it's gone up and down. I think there's always a factor of risk for everything, you know. Um, I don't think great people that never took risk. Let me say that differently. I don't think great people that ever achieved anything never took some form of risk, right? I think comfort creates mediocrity. So one needs to risk in their life, I'd say, to be able to achieve great things. I try to live on the fact of putting yourself out there, expanding your comfort zone to be able to do things that others haven't done. And that allows you to, in some way, risk specific circumstances. My goal is more than risk, just expanding the comfort zone. So doing things that make you feel uncomfortable involves some level of risk. But it's also a pro and con, right? Like, if you don't risk, is it better to stay where you are, whether you're happy or not, right? Or do you prefer something bigger and greater? I've always been those that hasn't been content with everything consistently. I always want more out of something. So I'm always trying to risk something else, um, in the loosest term, of risk, let's say.
Yeah. So when do you go live?
I'm looking specifically maybe this week or next week at the latest.
Okay, amazing. And what is there a paid aspect of joining this group of super connectors?
No, I haven't put a paid function to it yet, essentially because I'm looking to, let's say, solidify the model, right? Proof of concept, because this is just the beginning of the overall flow of how I plan to build this out. This is the first phase of a three-phase project, essentially. So once I've got proof of this, the money will come after that. My plan is to consistently do what I've been doing now, bring in clients to business owners, super connectors, and then getting referral fees from having done that. This just creates a more steady flow of that.
Can you give us a window into what phase 2 and phase 3 is? You don't have to if you don't want to, but could you give us a little window into phase 2 and phase 3?
Sure. So essentially, phase two would be focusing on the monetization of the direct network of a super connector rather than just themselves. And phase three would be the extension to the entire society of the super connectors, current and extended reach, right? A platform where everybody would come and essentially create a passive way that they're monetizing their network.
Amazing. Right. Look, we're coming to the end of the interview. I ask the same 6 questions to all of my guests. They're quick fire questions. They don't need a quick fire answer. First question is, what's the best decision that you've made?
I think learning sales, best decision that I've ever done. Yeah,
Why is that?
because it's taught me many skills other than just sales. Expanding the comfort zone, connecting authentically with people, understanding human psychology. Um, yeah, many things. Many things come with sales. I think it's one of the best things that I ever did. Communication, connection with people. Yeah, it's led me to here, basically.
And let's be honest, no business exists without sales.
Completely agree. But even life, there's definitely a strong level of influencing, consideration, convincing within our day-to-day relationships with other people, right? If you want anyone to do something, you need to convince them always, right? So
yeah,
it's there, no matter what we're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, next question. What's the best piece of advice you've been given?
Given it some thought, I've received a lot of advice over the years. I'd say that the best one would probably be like whatever your goal is, change it to something that's 10 times bigger because you probably should never achieve the ultimate goal that you want. And if you do, then great. You don't want to under dream. I'd say that's the best advice that I've received.
Think big.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. I do think that's something quite prevalent in society, in our world, that people only think between the boxes that they've been given and don't necessarily think beyond that, which I think what you're doing definitely attributes to that idea. Next question. Who's the person that's helped you most in your career?
So just to clarify, would it be someone that specifically helped me, or in terms of someone that like I've studied or learned from as a guru or a mentor online, or what?
Well, it would be nice if there was a person, but it doesn't have to be. So it's up to you, really.
Yeah, I think there's one specific super connector that I've been working with, I think for about 4 or 5 years, right? That I will not name, but I'd say he was the individual that has helped me also realize how important networking and connecting is specifically. So that person.
Amazing. Right, this might be a hard one. Tell me about a regret that you have.
I try not to live by regret. I try to find the lessons in everything, and I try to also do everything that I want to do. So I don't particularly have many regrets in my life. I don't think I have any, honestly. I do whatever I want to do whenever I when it comes to me, I don't leave any opportunity. I always try to find what's the worst that could happen idea, and I just do it
Right.
anyways. So don't really have any regrets.
Really? Not a relationship, not a way that you've treated someone, or like, I get the idea of like missed opportunities, but surely you've had a missed opportunity in your life that if you could go back and do it again, you would do differently.
Mark, I genuinely don't believe so. I think everything that I've done to this point has led me to be the person that I am today. I wouldn't want to change any of it. I'm grateful for it all, whether it be good or bad. Because there's also a lot of lessons in the bad, right? Just because we
Oh,
consider it bad,
100%.
maybe somebody
100%.
else would consider it the best thing that's ever happened to them, that same circumstance, right? So it's a level of perspective, man. I think the perspective is what makes it good or bad for someone. I try not to, look at things in a bad way. I try to look at the lessons from things that brought a form of hardship in whatever way or regard, So
Yeah,
don't really live by regret, man. That's
no,
that's how
fair
I live
enough,
my
fair
life.
enough. And you're absolutely right. You learn more by mistakes than you do by successes, and that's a reality in life. And I think we all should stand by that. Um, right, I'm talking about your whole life here, not just specifically on this project, this venture. Was there a time that you wanted to give up, and what made you pull through? So all the changes you've had in your life, the moves and the opportunities that you've had, was there a time you potentially wanted to jack it all in, maybe go back to South Africa and go there? And what made you pull through?
Man, number of times, and it's not even that I've reached any form of success at this point, in terms of the goals that I've achieved. Well, I've set out for myself in this life. Number of times. What made me pull through though is just the perseverance, man. I think it's not over until I achieve what I'm trying to set out to achieve. So there might be some setbacks, but again, I also believe it's just the perspective that you look at it in. Um, so just perseverance, man. Personal development, listening to a lot of the greats that I listen to. They've also helped me significantly.
So is there a person specifically online or in a book or whatever that has been incredibly impactful for you? Who's that?
Yeah, I'd say Dan Pena definitely
Oh,
been
right, Dan Pena,
ultimately
right. No,
ultimately
no
impactful, man.
bullshit with him.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Yeah,
Have you
he's
been to
been
the
he's been great.
castle?
I've not. I've not. I
Is
want
it
to
an
though.
ambition of
I want
yours?
to. Absolutely.
So what's attracted you to Dan Pena? I'm intrigued by that.
I think a big part of what my skill set is has been like like the jack of all trades, but the master of none. I'm not the ultimate best expert in anything, even though I've done sales and marketing consulting for a number of years. I've always felt that there's stuff that I'm missing, or things that I've been able to do with it were not as great as what I've seen the best or the greatest do, right? But if there's been something that I've been consistently high bar at, it's going to be the connecting with people and building relationships. So I think the combination of skills has definitely put me into a space where I genuinely believe that acquisitions is something that I want to go down. And
Okay.
this building a super connector network has been a first initial phase to doing a strong network to then move into something of that nature, right?
Right.
So that's what specifically attracted me. I believe that I could do it particularly well because of the skill sets that I have.
Amazing. Um, Tell me something about you that most people don't know about.
I'll give you two things. One of my passions and hobbies is stand-up comedy. So I've performed in 9 countries so far in 2025. Um, yeah, and the cherry on top of that is the 10th country that I wanted to do, like the two-figure status, right, was South Africa when I went back.
Right.
And the issue that I then encountered was because of COVID, most of the clubs in Johannesburg, like the owners of them, unfortunately, passed away because of that, and they didn't have any shows by the time that I went there. So
Oh,
uh, really irony on top of it all.
yeah.
So yeah, that's one thing. Second thing is that I'm a huge classical music fan. I've been playing the piano since I was, I think, maybe 12 years old. Um, yeah, love the piano.
Amazing.
Love going to concerts, orchestras. Absolutely love it.
Amazing. And last question is, what does legacy mean to you? Is it something you
I
think
think,
about at this stage?
yeah, absolutely. I think, and I mean, just to kind of go to traditional core values, I hope not to offend anybody, but my goal as a man is to be a provider for my family. So my goal overall is to provide and to leave something behind for my future generations. It's always been fascinating for me the side of my history, my ancestry, and essentially where my roots come from. And I just want to leave something great behind, and um, yeah, and just do better than my previous generations. Basically, that's the goal. Leave a strong legacy
Amazing.
behind.
Thank you, Mario. Thank you so much for your time today. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you. If you've enjoyed that conversation with Mario and took something valuable away from it, please make sure that you hit the subscribe button, and therefore you won't miss an episode of Business Growth Talks. And I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below and let me know what your biggest takeaway from today was. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode.